So welcome, Sister Patricia Magee,
Thank you.
formerly Sister Dominica. Now, I'm always curious on how did you want that name? Were you assigned that name? What significance does it have for you?
No, actually, we did. A lot of times they ask us what we want, and my grandfather's name was from Dominic. My grandparents were from Italy, and Dominic was his name, and so I asked for it, and there was already a Dominic, Sister Mary Dominica, and I understood that there was a Sister Dominica who had passed away.
Okay.
So I asked for it, and they said sure.
Very good. It's wonderful. It's a nice name to have. So many people may have had you as a teacher or something when you had that name or whatever. So what we're interested in, we're interested in you and your history. And we like to start off with knowing a little bit of your background, where you began, where you were born, not when you were born, where you were born, family dynamics, brothers, sisters, what was it like, and the neighborhood or the parish that you grew up in, however, what's important to you at that time.
Well, my early years, I was born in Detroit, and I am a family of sisters. We didn't have any boys in our family. I'm the fourth born of my mother's six children. There are 4 living right now, but I was born in 1943, and at that time we lived, our family lived in St. Dominic's Parish.
In downtown Detroit?
Yes, down near the ballpark.
Yeah.
And so we lived there until just before I started first grade, and all of my older sisters were all at St. Dominic's. So we moved away, and we moved to a housing project. My mom was a single mom. She became
With 6 children?
Well, she had only 5 at that time because the baby after me had died, and my father left. And so she was expecting my youngest sister. Yeah, it was a difficult time, and so the baby was born, and I'm 3 years old, and I go down the back alley and meet this woman who's hanging clothes in her backyard, and I become friends with her.
Oh my.
And she's probably looking at this 3-year-old child saying, "Where did you come from?"
Oh my word.
So I took her back to my house, and every day I kept going to see her. So eventually she and her husband kind of semi-adopted me. So I would stay with them on weekends, and I would go on vacation with them. And so I kind of lived in 2 different households.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of different cultural experiences than my sisters did.
How did they feel about that?
Well, I found out as I got older that a couple of them, they were jealous, and that would be natural. I mean, as an adult, I'm able to look at that and say, I didn't know that at the time, but they were, and they told me about it. So
what possessed you, this little 3-year-old, to go down the street and meet this lady?
I think it was the Holy Spirit, because these people they happened to be Catholic, which was why my mother trusted them, and so whenever I was with them, we always went to church, but the fact is that when we moved to Herman Gardens, the housing project, my foster parents moved to Epiphany Parish, which was quite a ways, but every weekend either Dorothy would come to get me on the bus, or Butch would drive and pick me up and take me to their home. They had no children. And
see, your sisters probably realized you were special.
I had my own toys there and everything.
My.
The one thing I really learned from them, though, was to take care of my things. I think if I had just been in my own household, I might not have learned that. So anyway, they were wonderful. And what happened was, when we moved, the next day I started first grade, and we took the bus all the way back to St. Dominic's grade school. I did that for 8 years.
The regular city bus?
Yeah, yes.
Because they didn't have school buses back then.
That's right, they didn't. And so we all graduated from St. Dominic's, except for my youngest sister, because she was 4 years behind. So she ended up going to St. Christopher's once I graduated. But anyway, and then by that time, Rosary High School had been built.
Oh, you're a Rosary girl.
And yes, I was in the second graduating class.
Oh, my.
So it was a wonderful experience didn't have to be the first class, but to be there, as second class and feel like we were building the culture of the school. It was a neat thing.
Now that must have been far away, was it?
Actually, I walked to school. It was
Rosary, okay.
Right, yeah. The Herman Gardens was on Southfield and Joy Road, and they were on Greenfield and Joy Road. So, yeah. So it was close, and so I walked to school.
And all the girls went there?
Oh, no, I was the only one. All of my sisters went to visitation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I do think, now, what happened was just prior to me going to grade school, my foster mother, Dorothy, died. And so what I think happened was, because that was very expensive to go to Rosary.
I was thinking that.
That I think Butch, my foster father, paid for that. Yeah. So, and I had music lessons and was in the orchestra, and I mean, a lot of opportunities and advantages that my sisters didn't have. So,
what's your relationship like with your sisters now?
Very good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's all over the place. One's in Florida, one's in Ottawa, Canada, one's in South Carolina.
That's kind of nice. Look where you can go visit, right?
Yeah, that's true. I was in Ottawa at Christmas, which was very nice. Yeah.
Very good.
So then I had our sisters all the way through, and I also worked at Camp Stapleton, where our sisters were the main staff, and that, I think, is where my vocation came from.
Anyone in particular? Any sister in particular that kind of was?
Well, my sponsor was Lucy Quinn, who is Sister Florence Maria's.
Oh, I know Lucy, yeah.
They were, she was part of it, Sister Jane Edward, and I'm trying to think of all of the sisters who were there.
Okay.
And they just had a lot of fun together, and it was a chance to see, the joy that Dominicans have.
That's what we've heard
fortunate.
so often from our women who knew other congregations, but it's that sense of joy.
Well, and I really didn't know any other congregations. I had one semester at Mercy College, but other than that, I really didn't know the Mercy Sisters.
So who tapped you on the shoulder and said, "I am calling you, come serve me"? How did you know about
our sisters from grade school were always talking to us about having a vocation. So it was kind of in the back of our mind that, that a calling could be there. And it was just, I think, graduating from high school, when I started college, by then I knew, I think I have a calling, but I felt like I wanted to leave my mother some funds so that I knew that as a young novice, postulant novice, sometimes you needed things, and parents helped with that until you were in the congregation. So I worked for a year and a half, and then I entered.
Where did you work?
I worked at a hospital. I was a nurse's aide.
Oh, wonderful.
So when I first came to the congregation, they put me at St. Clement's.
I was going to
be
say,
a nurse's aide, right?
You better say goodbye to it one of these days.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I did that for as a postulant and a novice. And it was interesting. Our crowd got together. Even the former sisters came. And we were having a big party, and I was able to say to them, because not only was I a couple years older than most of them, there were like 94 of us that first year, and I was 10th oldest.
Wow.
Everybody else was a whole lot younger,
high school graduates.
Yes, and they had so many experiences that they would share memory-wise. Finally, I said to them, you have to forgive me, but I wasn't even with you in those times because my obedience was over at St. Clement's, and so I never experienced what everybody else did. So, and then my first place that I went, my first mission was St. Joseph's downtown Adrian.
Okay.
And I loved it down there. That was wonderful.
Education has been important in your life. As you've looked at various places that you've been in leadership, administration. Yeah.
Well, I only did that for 1 year, although I was in religious ed director.
Yeah.
But the classroom is my real love.
Yes.
You know, I just loved teaching children. So I was here for 7 years. It was really time to discern whether I should make my final vows or not. And, you know, God just said to me at that point, and I really feel that, you know, you can't stay here. I had some fear, I think, in my life. So that's what led me to leave in order to experience life, in order to just find out who I was.
You withdrew from the congregation.
Yeah, I withdrew.
Okay.
And I ended up, for 2 years, I taught downtown Detroit at Holy Trinity with the IHM Sisters.
Yes.
I learned so much from them. They're
Yes.
beautiful women.
Yes, they are.
And then I met my husband. I was able to get married, which was kind of a surprise to me, but it happened. Wonderful man. He was from Northern Ireland originally.
Oh, my word.
And yes, and we met at the Irish American Club, which is kind
Downtown.
of funny.
Oh, gosh.
So we were married for 17 years. The first 10 years we lived in Detroit and Harper Woods. Then we moved out to Oregon because I had gotten my master's degree in special ed. And my husband was retired by that time. He's a little bit older than me. So I opted for a job in Oregon, and I taught emotionally disturbed children for 12 years.
Oh, my word, that's wonderful. That's a special calling in itself. Yeah.
You know, it is, and I did have one principal that I worked under say to me one time, this isn't a job for you, it's a calling. He did say that.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so it was a real compliment, you know, I
Yes.
felt. So we were in Oregon for 8 years when my husband passed away. He had cancer. So I stayed there for 4 more years, and then I came back to Michigan.
Did you have a good support system at that time?
You know, I did. I did have a good support system, but it was not what I knew I wanted. And so I decided to come back where family was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came back, and I got a job, a teaching job up in Tawas, and taught there for how many years? 3 years, I think.
Okay.
And then I retired.
Okay.
And that was my first retirement.
I was going to say, you look rather young to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could do it financially, but the fact was I just needed a break, you know. And after that, on occasion, there were teaching things that came up, classrooms that needed people. And when I was taking care of my mother, I did that for 5 years before she passed away. There was a small little Catholic school in Whitmore Lake, which is where we lived. Right. And the little Benedictine sisters that were there, they needed help. So I ended up substituting in their building and helping out. So, I mean, things like that would happen. And, you know, I would just put my skills to use. Yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, the thing I've been very fortunate about is that I've been in a lot of different places.
Yes, you have.
I, taught in Michigan all those years, but then I went to Oregon, and then when I came back to Michigan, northern, you know, up north, but then when I came back to the congregation, I went to
What made you come back to the congregation?
Oh, that's a very good question. Sometimes I have people ask me this who know the answer. The community, I became an associate, and I forgot about that part of my life.
Okay.
Once when my husband died, I came back to the Mother House because my crowd was having a gathering for the 25th Jubilee. And I was here when I learned about the associate program.
Okay.
And so I began a journey into being an associate.
Wonderful.
And I was an associate for 14 years. But what happened was 3 years prior to that 14 years, the community asked me if I would be the director. So I had an office here in Adrian. And one day I was at Mass at St. Catherine's, and God just said to me, now, prior to this, every now and then I would say, Lord, am I supposed to come back? Am I supposed to ask? And always the answer was no. So this particular day, though, I was at Mass, and I was looking around, and actually I heard the words, it's time for you to come back to your sisters.
Wow, profound. And so what year was that? Take your time. We have more Kleenex. Oh my word, your story, your travels, your journey has benefited us so much. And I think yourself, you certainly have kept your listening ear and your response. And it's taken you places you didn't think you'd be.
That's true. Yeah. So that was 2007.
Okay.
That I wrote the letter and asked to return. I didn't know what kind of a response I would have, but I was told yes. So
wonderful,
right.
Wonderful.
So in August of 2007, I became a novice again. That was an interesting
They didn't
journey.
ask you to take over the program.
Well, I stayed another whole year, but the leadership said they really wanted an associate to be the director, so they interviewed some people, and then I helped transition that person,
Okay.
and who happened to be Mary Lack,
Okay.
an excellent director.
Yeah.
So then I, stayed at the Mother House for about 2.5, 3 years, that was a joy to me to do that, to be able to do that. But then I went to Alaska.
I was going to say, I remember I went up for a visit up there to see somebody, and I think you were there, or you had a sister there or something, didn't you?
Yes, I did. She was working she and her husband were working at Denali National Park.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, yes, and that was during the summer.
Yeah.
But I have a niece who lives right in Eagle River now, which is kind of nice. I mean, a couple times I've gone back, I've been able to visit with her. So. But anyway, from Alaska, came back. I went to South Carolina for a while, and I don't know what our time is like, but it's an interesting story. When we went to South Carolina, there were only about 30 religious sisters of different communities there, and the Archbishop always interviewed every religious who came. So he interviewed Sister Mary Ennis and I. We were living together, and he asked us what our background was and what we were doing. And when I told him I was a special ed teacher, he wanted me to go to a school in northern Charleston. Because they had a need for, he felt, he himself had been an educator. So he said, I feel there's a need there. I want you to go there and ask to help. So I went to the school, and at first, they wouldn't even let me in the door. They kept me standing on the step, and I had to explain, well, the Archbishop sent me. So they said, well, all right, we'll set something up. And this was November. So I didn't end up getting into the building until January. Finally, I went in, and I set up a special ed room and had children come throughout the day for help. Well, throughout the morning, it was a half a day, because I knew afternoon, what school is like. In the afternoon, you do science and social studies and those things. So I was there every morning. So I was there for close to 18 months. And in that time, Sister Mary Ann had to come back to the Mother House. So I ended up living with the Sisters of Charity at their Mother House on St. James Island. And it was a wonderful experience, to live with that other community. Just to see how the charism is and how people respond, Well, but anyway, so I stayed at that school. And I left and came back to Michigan after 18 months. And it was the following Christmas I went down because my niece was having Christmas at her home. This is my sister's daughter. But I got one of the lay teachers in the school was getting married, so I went down for both things, to go to the wedding. And well, when I went down for that wedding, I show up and everybody was surprised to see me, but they said, oh, they grabbed my hand and said, we want you to meet somebody. They hired someone to replace me. Now, if that wasn't a compliment, I don't know what was. I felt really good about it. Being that they didn't want me there in the beginning, and they could see the value of it. So, yeah.
So now you're to bring you back to where we are right now. You're in Flint. You're in
yes, I'm at
that new
St. Luke's New Life Center.
New Life Center, right? That's just a blessed, graced ministry up there.
Oh, and it's wonderful to work with Sister Carol Weber. She is just marvelous. And Sister Patricia Magee is also doing really good things. I'm handling the children's part of it. I started an after-school tutoring program almost 3 years ago and have built it up. And most of the children who come have a learning disability of some kind, so my background really is helpful for that. So.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of energy. So as you look back, I mean, your life certainly has been, from the very beginning,
like a checkerboard.
Back out, did you say you went down the alley and you found that? And you call them your foster parents.
I call them my foster parents. It's just a reference I make.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. It makes you feel closer. But your life has just gone in different angles. And as you look back over it, you certainly have said, you've been open and you've been graced and you've listened and you've prayed and you've discerned. Is there, you don't want to say one's better than the other. What have you learned about yourself in your lived experience?
Well, one of the things I learned is that I think I was on the autism spectrum, that I am, you never leave it, but that over the years I have learned to cope with some of the communication lacks that I had.
Okay.
People probably didn't realize it. I mean, when we first entered, we were silent a large part of the day, and with children, I'm totally relaxed. I have I think I'm busy reading them in order to help them, reading where they're at and what's happening with them. With adults, I had trouble communicating, I think. So I've learned that about myself, that I have gradually come to understand myself better and pay attention to other people's needs more than I did. Yeah.
Okay. Who has inspired you the most? I don't want to say the most. Someone that has strongly inspired you, because there's lots of people that inspire us.
Wow, yes, that is who has inspired me the most?
And what was it about that individual or situation that sticks with you?
Yeah, you know what, I have to say my husband.
Okay.
I think I am the person I am today because of him.
What did he see in you?
And that's the thing that surprises me, is he saw something and he made me grow.
Wonderful.
And I think that's what marital love does for people. I believe that if you love one another, it's the love that when you have to call somebody on something they did, you're not injured by it. You're actually blessed by it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think happened.
What's your favorite scripture saying?
Well, actually, I belong to the crowd of the Good Shepherd, and I think that it's indicative of my life too. Is the beginning of Psalm 23 is, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. He leads me to lie down in, yes, exactly, to lie down in green pastures. And my life has kind of been that way. I have been very blessed. I'm just very grateful.
Kind of opposite. What do you do for fun?
Well, I used to love to grow herbs, but I'm not in a living situation right now where I can. That was always a hobby of mine over many years.
Don't those kids do that up in Flint?
Well, the children, I don't have them long enough every day for us to do anything like that. If it were a regular school, I could probably find a way to do it. But so I don't do that. So usually I go to concerts sometimes. Sister Teresa and I do that. And the Mott School of Music, they have free concerts with their staff. It's really marvelous. Wow. And then I watch a lot of a lot of Asian shows because I wanted to learn about Eastern cultures, the eastern part of our world. And it is so interesting to find how each of those Eastern countries, their cultures are so different even from each other. You know, so I've learned a lot, and one of the reasons I did that was because our Filipina sisters joined us, and it's like, what a good way to understand them, you know, is to learn about that.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Of course, we're at that age where...
Well, I think in at least maybe, hopefully another 2 years or so, I might actually be able to come to the Mother House if I can.
You put your name in. You're
yes,
on the roster.
I did put my name in.
That's good.
Because it takes a while, I know, to have an
Sometimes,
available.
then some people just get in right away. It's just the time you come, but thank God we haven't lost anybody lately through death.
Yeah,
this is unusual.
That is a good thing.
It's a blessing. So, anything else you were prepared to talk about and I didn't?
I don't think so. I'm very grateful to not only to have the opportunity to do it, but just to have it over with.
I know, but thank you. And I know I was invited you on several occasions, so you have to wait for the right moment, and I think we did. And I thank you so much for your openness and honesty with us.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So we thank you in the name of the congregation, and keep being who you are. And what's your husband's name?
Arthur.
His name was Arthur. Okay, well, pray to him to help you as you move along on your journey.
Well,
yeah.
I do, actually.
Good. Oh, I'm sure. So thanks again, Sister Patricia Magee, formerly Sister Dominica.